in Pokemon Red and Blue, if you examine the Super Nintendo in the copycat's house, you'll get text pop up on the screen that says a game with Mario wearing a bucket on his head.
That doesn't ring a bell.
None of us knew. And none of us knew.
But someone just heard that and goes, oh my God.
Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Nolan here.
And this is episode 353. I saw an article this week put out by The Gamer. It was an opinion piece entitled Stop Remaking Good Games and Start Remaking Games That Could Have Been Good.
Yes.
Okay.
Nope. I'm there.
The premise was rather than remaking games like Resident Evil 4, The Last of Us, and Dead Space, remake games like Parasite Eve and The Legend of Dragoon, and games that were good but didn't necessarily have the reach and the popularity that some of these other games had. And some of the games that didn't have the playability to modern standards. Some of these games that they're making now, remaking, you can kind of play just as is today, like you could have 5 years ago or 4 years ago when they came out.
I 100% agree, but I 100% don't think it will happen.
Why? Because money and popularity?
Money
Well,
ruin everything, especially in gaming. Money,
right.
We hate you. Money.
Passion projects often don't get funding. You know what I mean? Like if some devs came and they were like, we love Parasite Eve, and they're like, no one else does. Bye.
Well, and it's taking risks. Why take risks?
Right.
You're supposed to eliminate the risks, and so just do a game that everybody already bought, and they'll buy it again.
Okay.
It's our fault. It's really our fault. It's our
No.
fault.
It is.
It ain't my fault.
It's partly our fault.
I think they should do both, because I get hyped for the popular ones still when they're like RE4 is a good example. I'm really hyped for it just because, like, I don't know, every once in a while just remake good games, but I think that'd be a cool idea. I just think that if it happens, they would assign it to like third-party dev teams or like a B team, and it would end up being bad again, or just
Now,
not
here's
what
the
it
thing.
could be.
I agree with you. I like the idea of doing both. However, we all three agree, I believe. Let me just preface. We're not historically negative Nolan's moms around here. We typically come with a positive vibe. We come with good energy. But the reality is that gaming large scale has stagnated within the past few years. Since Skyrim, we have stagnated. Have there been good ones? Yes, absolutely. But by and large, they are remakes of the same game.
I get what you're saying.
Over and over and over again. I'm not even talking about remakes. I mean,
New ones.
literal remakes and also remakes, and there's been so little forward progress, so people aren't making Metroid for the first time. People aren't making other games for the first time. We're just redoing and redoing and redoing. I want us to stop.
I want us to stop.
But you know what?
It's not
No,
us,
for real.
though.
It's not just video games. That's Marvel.
It's movies,
Like that's
yeah.
It's everything right now. We suck.
Yeah, the rehashing
True.
of art doesn't really happen in other genres like that. Like in other art forms, like music, yes, movies, yes, but then you like that doesn't
Video
happen in
games,
like
yes, all of the
No,
art
no.
forms.
Books.
But like with like not with books, not with paintings. They don't do that with that like with those types of art, and it's like yeah, because new stuff is better, even if right now you don't think so, but later you're gonna think that.
I'm depressed.
I am too. I think games suck.
Well, okay.
There's,
so based on
there's lots of old ones that aren't that, and so we're okay.
Retro Gaming Podcast. So based on that question, based on that conversation, I must ask you both a question.
0.
Okay.
Okay. Would it be fairy to say that we all agree here? What? I can't hear you?
Don't make it worse. Don't lean in. Don't do it.
Like in our Retro Game of the Week, Mario and Wario.
Overview.
Mario and Wario You know it's not Mario because you can't be Mario and Wario.
Oh,
you know that,
could.
right? You know that. Who?
Why would you have to say that? Do people say it
Yes.
that way?
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
A lot of
absolutely.
people say Mario.
No.
Yes,
yeah,
they do.
a lot. They do.
And so I
That's-
have to point that out. It's not Wario. You wouldn't say that, would you? I'm talking to the people that say that. Anyways, Mario and Wario is a puzzle game developed by Game Freak, the Pokemon people.
The Pokemon people.
This was actually 3 years before they developed Pokemon Red and Blue.
So the prequel.
This is the
We
prequel
wouldn't
to
have-
Pokemon as a
We wouldn't
thing.
have Pokemon
Yeah.
without this game.
Yes.
I
So-
mean,
They had worked with Nintendo. They had done a Yoshi game as well. I think this was their 5th game, maybe. It was released in Japan only in 1993. And despite it not having an international release, this game is 100% in English. So you can play it. That's convenient for this show.
no patch needed.
No patch needed. Just
That
play
makes
it.
no sense.
Doesn't.
Well, yeah, it doesn't
You
to
don't-
us, but I guess they have a lot of English stuff in Japan.
You're
though.
right, Kenny, with what you're about to say.
Yeah, you also don't need words in this game at all.
Yeah, at all.
Yeah, it's all simple. Yeah, it's just symbols. Yeah, that's true. So they were like, let's just do it in English for fun. I hope those of you listening have your Super Famicom mouse accessory handy because you will need it to play this game. This is obviously a big deal. We haven't had to deal with too many weird peripherals to play games, and this is our first time with the SNES mouse. Did you guys have one?
No.
Yes.
No way, real.
Yeah, because I had Mario Paint.
Mario Paint, yeah, that was the first. I think that was the first one that utilized it.
Which I, and probably the majority of people, thought was the only game that was for the SNES mouse peripheral.
I think a lot of people think that. Like, they just thought it died out. And no, this one, and maybe there's certainly other games that used it. I don't know of them.
No, there's a bunch. A lot of them, though, I'm going to say almost half, I'm rounding up to be generous, were Japan-only exclusives. And so a lot more representation of this hardware there, for whatever reason, than here. There still was more than Mario Paint, but yeah, everyone knows it from Mario Paint.
I want one so I can hook it up to my computer and game
Put a
with it.
trackpad
Yeah.
and fuse USB.
Yeah, it definitely had a ball in it. You know the ball
Yeah,
that you
it
would
was
take
the ball
out in the
mouse.
forbidden candy?
It did. You would have to do some work to make it work with your PC. Is what I'm saying.
Yes, you would. It would take a lot of connectors. I've got the story translated from the book.
In English.
That's a good point. I think it was translated from Japanese to English. I think the booklet is in Japanese.
Gotcha.
So this is your setup for this puzzle game. Mario, Peach, Yoshi, and Luigi travel into a mystical forest to find a fairy who can grant true happiness. So they're in a dark time, all three of
It
them,
sounds reasonable.
I guess. And Luigi gets separated from the group. So they go and try to find him, and along the way, Wario shows up in his plane and does a drive-by bucketing. And drops a bucket on Mario's head. Oh no! He'll never be able to see with this thing on. The fabled fairy actually. What?
That's how buckets on the head work. You can't see.
You wear buckets on your head all the time?
I've played Skyrim. I know
The
how this
fabled
works.
fairy actually finds the group and guides them to Luigi, who can then take the bucket off for Mario. And you, the player, commands this fairy named Wanda. It was our first appearance in the Mario verse too. We have a new character joining the fray.
Story
Wanda?
makes sense to me because Mario is shorter, has shorter arms. Can't get that bucket off his head.
He can
needs
take his
someone
hat
that is-
off.
Needs someone that's taller than him to be able to help
Luigi?
with that process.
Is that really
And
what they were doing?
And
Okay.
Luigi would wander off alone. Like I'm with Dustin. I'm buying all of it. It sounds reasonable.
Also, it sounds-
they didn't think that deep. I'm telling you.
I think this was inspiration for Luigi's Mansion because, like, the setup to that game is similar. Mario gets separated from Luigi in a dark forest, and he has to go find him. I don't know.
I will say the last time that we saw Wario, we were on a couch together.
Yeah, WarioWare Inc. for the GameCube, not the one I wanted. No,
I
No,
forgot that
not
game.
Inc.
I don't
Super
like
Mega
it.
Fun Games or something.
Super Mega Fun Games the 6th. Yeah.
Now, did we play another game? Yes.
Yeah,
We
6
played
golden
the first
coins.
game
Yeah.
Yeah, that he
with
appeared.
Wario in it,
Yeah.
which was
Yep.
the Game Boy game 6 Golden Coins.
Yeah, we had a
That's
TikTok shout out
such
to
a
that
good
game
game.
recently. It's
Ooh.
a sick game.
So Wario is finding a home in New Game Plus now.
Mascot.
Gameplay.
There's many things that end up on Mario's head.
Yeah, not just a bucket.
Yes. It's more than a bucket.
It could be a bucket. It could be a vase. It could be
Safari hat.
Safari hat, half of Yoshi's eggshell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's probably gross.
What do you call the jellyfish things? Oh, a jellyfish.
Nice.
That's correct, Kenny.
So there's a variety of things that fall on his head depending on what stage or level. I hate the terminology here that they use.
Oh no, it's easy. Look,
Okay.
they're wrong. It's
Okay.
world level. It's
Yes,
just like
thank
Super
you.
Mario. It's just
Thank
like
you.
Super Mario 1-2, World 1-3, and etc.
But that's not what they use in here.
No.
It's level 1 is 10 different
Yes,
stages?
but they're
10
wrong.
different.
It's just a translation thing.
But it's the same kind of thing as Super Mario World 1-1, 1-2,
Yeah.
but it goes to 1-10. And then
Yes.
you can go to a different kind of environment for 2-1, 2-. And you do that through 8 different worlds. I'm going to use that terminology.
Yeah.
And where you're guiding Mario through supposedly increasingly difficult puzzles to be able to get to the end of the map, end of the stage.
And it's a true puzzler. I kind of maybe expected a mashup because a lot of puzzle games that we play are mashup puzzlers, and you do something else, and maybe the puzzles either take a back seat or just are not true puzzles. But this really is like they give you a stage, it's clear there's a problem to solve, and you solve it to progress.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the solving, though, I mean, all of it is getting your little lemming Mario to move to where he needs to be. Like, that's the point. But it's not, like, just puzzling, because there's certainly elements where, like, clicking the right things in the right timing. I don't know, there's some, like...
Puzzle?
I guess.
Yeah.
There's elements to it that felt less puzzly to me and more, I don't know, like, perform.
Perform?
I don't know how to
Perform.
describe
Like a
the
mime?
different. I sometimes I just don't have words.
You retract that statement?
I will whine more as we get further into this
Well,
episode
it's-
about what I'm thinking of.
It's certainly not a platformer, and that's what I meant when I said it's a true puzzler, because Mario typically is that, and maybe you would glance at the screen and think platform, but you don't have control of Mario. You are,
Right.
again, you have a mouse in your hand, and Wanda is on the screen, and that's who you're moving.
And let me clarify, for those of you that have played other games, most people's favorite part of like an action adventure RPG game are escort missions. We love walking slowly with someone
yeah.
to a destination.
That's a good point.
And that's what this game is. You are escorting Mario that you cannot control. And by the way, it doesn't have to be Mario. There are 3 different difficulties. Mario is your base difficulty, your normal difficulty. Princess Peach would be your easy difficulty
Sexist.
because she's slower, which not in 2022. I'm telling you that much.
Well, she's slower in Smash, kind of.
Okay, well, I disagree, and that's not what our podcast stands for.
Yoshi is the fastest for sure, though.
Yoshi's the fastest. By the way, I've always loved Yoshi.
I know you have.
Are there Yoshi haters? There's not, right? Everybody loves
I've
Yoshi.
No,
never
everyone
met
has
one.
to love Yoshi.
There's no way.
Hoshi, right? Everybody loves Yoshi.
I've seen a Toad hater, and I'm
That's
fine with the Toad hater. I'm not fine with the Yoshi hater.
Okay, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I'm so glad we're on the same page. I would have been furious.
Oh, then in that case, Yoshi's.
Hey, stop! Just for the drama.
Yeah, I need a clip. I think that the first using the mouse is obviously a big deal that we need to talk about, and
Yeah.
it felt kind of weird at first when you start up the game and you. I mean, I was just holding my wireless mouse, and you're clicking to progress screens and like to get in, like the menu is all cursor based, and it felt weird at first, yes, but I quickly picked it up because I use one of these 24
Yeah,
hours a day. You know what I'm saying?
You've got experience with it.
You have experience. Everyone does though now, and so that's what's kind of nice about controlling Wanda here is that it felt more like a PC game in some ways. It looked like a console game, but it felt sometimes like a PC game, and I kind of really liked it.
Yeah.
I almost wondered, and I don't think this was the driving force, but the nature of the game and the sort of like you have to click and at certain places in certain timing and have the dexterity to do that successfully. This almost felt like an edutainment game where the goal was learn to use a mouse.
I mean,
you know what I mean? Where it wasn't like the puzzling you had to sort of think through, and that was but that sort of underlying vibe of like, let's teach people to use a thing, because again, like we're looking at 2022, mice aren't confusing to anybody. There's some people that may have picked up this mouse and used it for the first time. Like this may be somebody's introduction to a mouse as like your interactivity.
That's fair, because the first world, and I commented on this in my first play, is extremely easy.
It's for babies.
It's for babies, and I was like, oh no, we have 8 worlds consisting of 10 levels, and I was worried for sure. But they do teach you in that first world, not only how to use a mouse, I guess, but also the blocks that you're interacting with. They do a good job of very slowly introducing you to how you interact with the stage and with the character, because you can also click on whoever you're playing.
Bonk
you can bonk on the head.
Directions.
Yeah,
and you switch directions of the character that you're escorting.
Yes.
I also think that the developers were wise here, because although World 1 is baby mode, you don't have to start with World 1. You're kind of given a visual like Mega Man setup, where you've got the different worlds around you, and you can click on any of those. So you can start on, it calls it level, but World 8, and do those 10, which are much more difficult than World 1's levels.
You should start at 1 or 2. But I do love that is an option, because you usually don't get that, especially with Mario. Mario is very linear progression. I guess you can teleport around if you get the secrets in Mario, but it's still, complete 1, 2. So I really liked that as well. And it made coming back to the game, like, this is a very, like, bite-sized kind of game. Like, I was able to, this week, just sit down, play a little bit, come back to it. And I liked that when I was done with one, I could just be like, actually, the ice world looks pretty cool. Let me see what that's about.
It's definitely got mobile game vibes, right? Like on your phone.
Yeah, it does. I
think big time. You could play this with your finger in your phone.
Yeah, you
easy.
could. Yep.
And let's give our listeners a little bit of visualization of what are some of the things that you're doing, that you're interacting with. The base thing that you learn first is that there are outlines of blocks, and you click on that space, and it creates a block there, and it's a permanent block, and that helps Mario, for this conversation, move across, where if those blocks aren't there, he'll teeter and fall into spikes and die a bloody, gory death.
Yeah.
There are also timed based ones, so it's just like that, but they only stick around for a short amount of time, and so you've got to click on them only when Mario is there, or he's going to fall and die.
Those take a minute to get the hang of. I had a couple falls, but there's a grace period though when you're teetering, when you can still click underneath. That is great, because that would be so frustrating if not, because there is a timer in the corner and it is ticking down. So if I would have fallen because of something like that, I would have been pissed. Another block. Well, it's not a block, actually. They introduce springs to you, so you can spring up. When Mario lands on it, he'll go up a tier, and that adds like a whole nother level of complexity. So that's one of the like curveballs that they throw at you.
Whole nother level. It takes you to a whole nother
level.
It's really
there's
funny.
a bunch more too. There's blocks that show up and don't show up on timers. There's blocks you have to just break that are a one-time break. There's blocks that are toggles so that you can turn them on, but it moves other blocks back and forth. Decent variety.
There's enemies. So there are some enemies that you can click, and some it will murder them. Some it will make them smaller and slow down
Stun
their
them,
pacing.
kind of, yeah.
Some it will stun them. So there are some interactables. The main thing is you can't let anything bad happen to Mario.
Yeah, it's a one touch
Sure.
type of thing.
Yeah, he's got a bucket on his head. That'd be unfair.
Well,
if you let anything happen
or an
to him.
eggshell, or a
He's got a
hat,
bucket-like object on his head.
Now,
Yeah.
when I got into puzzle mode this week for this game, I was a little disappointed that they didn't introduce more block types or obstacles or mechanics. You kind of get to a point where you've unveiled most of them, and they just kind of, yes, they get more complex as you go further, but I just wanted more from that. I wanted more block types, but what they did do that I appreciated were the enemy types. If those weren't there, it would have been a lot more boring, but they were also on theme with the world that you were in, and so I really liked the enemies they introduced, but I wanted more from the mechanic.
See, I feel like there was a good variety of blocks, but the fact that per world they only used like one or two block types. Generally, they would choose like, this is a world with X kinds of blocks. You didn't get a bunch of the blocks that they have created utilized together in the
Really
same
complex puzzles. Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
a little bit of that.
I think
but
some
not a
of
lot.
that is that this game is more for kids than your typical Mario.
You think so?
It felt like it was. I said babies earlier, and I don't really mean that because like we have played a game now that is for literal babies, with Barney and maybe another one. But I think it is more for kids where, sure, adults can have fun with some of it in some levels, but I do agree that adults want, and even teenagers want more variety, more. See, like the progression of difficulty, I felt like it was okay and not okay at the same time. Okay in that it slowly revealed and showed new things to you. It didn't do it, too much or not teach you, but it was also too slow. Like,
yes, even with Yoshi.
The first 3 worlds or so, are not the only challenge there is trying to collect all 4 of the stars that give you an additional life, but you don't even really need all of those. So if you're just trying to get to Luigi, it's pretty easy.
I'm also glad that the stars exist, though, because again, that's one more thing at least, because it does affect how you solve puzzles. There's also something we didn't mention that doesn't happen in the first world because they're too small, but World 2 and later, the stages are bigger and scrollable. So before the stage starts, it lets you glance at the puzzle and plan out what you're going to do. And I really like that aspect of this, or that approach to puzzles. It's very smart. It's very clever too. Again, using the mouse there to just kind of scroll across the screen. It's great. But the star and with that, the stars affect how you're navigating the stage. And so at least if you were trying to go for 100%, which I started out that way and decided I didn't want to do that because it's super slow. At least you have that option, right?
You needed it for planning the puzzle's sake. However, I didn't feel like it was enough. I didn't want to go through and memorize the complete layout of some of these puzzles completely before they were going. And so once you started them, unless you had done that, there were still lots of moments where you're following your character and you have to remember something or react to what's just going on the screen right at the time. It would have been a very different feeling game and probably more sort of PC-ish, and maybe there are technical reasons they didn't, but I would have enjoyed the game much more if you just hadn't been toggled to the Mario view the whole time. If you'd had the freedom to move and see what was ahead and not be stuck just in that box of what's around him.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
It would have felt like a different game, but it would have been so much easier to step a few levels ahead and click some boxes that you knew were coming but that haven't shown up on the screen. And so I don't know, I felt very constrained by that sort of view of we're just hovering over this slow moving character.
I get it, but I think in some ways that would make it even easier. I mean, the part of the difficulty is keeping it tethered to Mario so that you're having to react more quickly. That's part of
I guess. But what I want is it to be a puzzler. I want it to be something where I've got to solve it. I should be able to go through and
solve it and then let him
figure out what I'm going to do and click everything and then hit go and have the character speed up and
really
it just
PC.
complete.
Yeah, you
You know
want
what
a
I mean?
different
Like,
game.
Yeah.
There should be more lemmings and less. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just I didn't. Maybe it is just that sort of PC bias, but I hated my character is falling from a top level to a bottom level, and there's a timed block, and it doesn't show up until you start falling, and I got to get it just
hard,
right.
yeah.
I'm clicking on the stupid thing. That's not fun.
Right.
That's just frustrating, and there were a lot of those moments because of the way they implemented this game.
You're looking for a Rudberg Goldberg kind
Yeah.
of situation setup where you do all the work and then you just press go and watch
That'd
it
be way more
happen.
interesting to me than this game was.
And before Nolan says something, I just want to clarify.
Yeah.
I clearly know that that's not how you pronounce Rudberg Goldberg, but neither of them stopped, and so
I don't know
think
how to
I'm an
say
idiot.
Rude Goldberg.
I'm not the idiot, so just want
Rube
that to be
Goldberg?
clear. It is something along those
Okay.
lines. It's definitely not what I said.
And I guess the last piece that that faked me out, because there were a lot of fake outs. I saw a mushroom and was like, oh my goodness, what is this gonna do? And it adds time. So the time that I said is in the corner that's running out, it kind of refills that a little bit. But it's only really mandatory if, one, you're going for all 4 stars, and I'm pretty sure that it's still possible to do it without grabbing mushrooms on the stages that have a mushroom, because not all of them do. I don't know. It's just, there were a lot of what ifs here, or a lot of promise, I guess, up front when I was first introduced, but I wanted more complexity. And maybe it is what you're saying, Dustin. Maybe this is mainly
younger
for
audience.
kids
Yeah.
using a mouse. I don't know.
Question: did anybody use the faster mouse speed option?
No.
No,
I
I'm
tried
having
it.
to. I did not try it. I'm having to already change my DPI on
I
my.
had to lower my DPI to negative to get it to be playable. Otherwise, Wanda was like, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, just zooming everywhere, man.
It's like an FPS trainer. It's like for Valorant.
One of the things that we didn't talk about is that there are boss battles.
No.
On each and every level, on the 10th level of the world, you've got an identical boss battle. And by boss battle, that is the silliest thing to call it.
You click
You click
spam
50
click.
times. I don't really know how many times you have to click, but
27 or something. It's a
is it
lot.
really? But
It's
is
a
it
weird
some
number.
weird
It
number?
makes no sense.
Wario is flying across on his plane, which, by the way, do you know the name of that plane?
Bulldog?
Yeah. And he's flying across and from right to left and going off screen for a few seconds and then coming back on left to right. And you have to, during that time he's on screen, rapidly click the mouse on
Bonk him.
And as you're doing so, he's, I guess, taking damage or getting coins. And if you do it enough, his plane blows up and he flies off. If not, it just ends. But
It
still,
just
you beat it.
Right. It just reminded me
For
of
kids.
those
It's for kids.
of those
It's a game for
side
kids.
bonus stages in Mario 3, Super Mario. Like, it's not a boss. It's just there, and you can play it if you want.
It's good to have some interaction with Wario, because if not, all you have him doing
Right.
is dropping the bucket-like
And he's
item
in
on.
the title. Like,
Right.
I don't know.
But they're weak boss battles for sure.
Aged.
Let's talk about hardware. Console hardware belongs in a museum. Am I right?
I mean, yes, but not just.
Yes, just.
Ooh.
Like, even if they work well, they require storage, like care. You have to find it, so thrifting. And they're probably really expensive by now. And then also the console itself, the games, the cables. You're either playing the game on a console, you're not going to go get the mouse.
In 2022, do we still have additional hardware for game consoles?
If you're buying
do
the
they still come
PlayStation VR thing.
A VR headset.
Okay,
But-
okay. What
I
else?
know, but
other
that's so
stuff, though?
expensive,
Do we
and-
do other stuff?
I think for a niche audience.
Fairly recently, we have.
I mean,
You got dance pads. Those are still
Okay.
relatively popular. You've
No,
got
popular.
not that long ago you had the little thing that hooks up with the Xbox that watches you in your room and lets you do
Oh right, the
interactive
Dance
motion
Dance
things.
Revolution thing.
So there are
Yeah,
some things.
Switch gives you boxes. Like there's still lots of stuff
There
that does
is,
third party.
but every
accessories.
time y'all said one of those, we all went, oh yeah.
Yeah,
Like, you know,
there's something about not doing them.
console hardware specifically. But the thing is, and hardcore collectors will love them, and they probably have them. And I love the idea of the SNES mouse, but you're not just gonna go buy one and have it to play this game.
Right.
That said, emulation makes your everyday mouse usable, which I freaking love. I just booted up the emulator this week every time and was using the same thing that I clicked on it with, and it's super usable. So I don't know. It's hard to say.
Right.
Like, the hardware aspect of it is kind of super dated, whereas the concept works still.
For a dated piece of like third-party hardware, this one is more accessible today because the mouse has become a really common way of interacting, you know, like with things. To some degree, even something as simple and straightforward as like the Nintendo gun,
you have to have a
would
CRT.
would almost be harder today because of the way it was implemented, even though it's probably more known, more universally loved, and easier to just like pick up and use. And so there's definitely some sort of interesting nuance to playing older games that depended on specific hardware for sure, but this one less so, just by the nature of which hardware it was in this case. So that was nice.
I didn't look it up. It'd be interesting to know how much a mouse, a Super Famicom mouse accessory would cost nowadays. And I also wonder, I would imagine it's completely fine, but I wonder, would the Super Nintendo mouse, I wonder this, is the Super Nintendo mouse and the Super Famicom mouse accessory the same? Are they identical, or are they different? Do they have different inputs? What I'm asking is, if you even had a Super Nintendo mouse over here in the States, would we even be able to play this game? Like, this game has a high level of entry to be able to play on original hardware.
Well, I know
especially for people outside of Japan.
US had a SNES mouse. I don't know if it's the same one or not. So
they
that's
look
another
identical
thing to worry about.
But you always wonder if the inputs
the
are
connectors.
The
Yes, I don't know.
It's a very interesting thing that retro gaming podcasters should have done their research on.
Somebody else did.
Let's talk about graphics.
Yeah.
I think they look good. They are a slightly scuffed Super Mario World graphics set.
Sure.
Yeah, it did feel third party. Like, it did feel not in-house. Felt outhouse.
Sure,
it
but
feels
still
close enough.
Yeah, it still has that polished Mario look, though.
It felt totally SNES and totally Mario to me.
Yes,
I know what you're talking about, Dustin, but yeah, like, it was certainly clearly from the SNES, and it felt like a Mario game, and I liked the graphics a lot, actually, and I really liked the sprites. Wanda looks great. The sprite, like the cursor, looks really good. The enemies look really solid too.
Most of the boxes are good sizes, and I think it's important to note they are very generous on your hitbox. I don't know if you can call it that, but like,
no, for sure.
Wanda, if you're in the general vicinity of the block, you're going to make it activate. If you're in the general vicinity of Mario, you're going to make him turn around. So like, I think the sprite work is done really well, both artistically and functionally. I think they both work well there.
I do think the longer you look at it, the more you'll realize that it is pretty simplistic. The graphics, I mean, like, yes, it looks good, but the backgrounds and everything, again, first glance look good, but when you see them over and over, you're like, yeah, this does feel,
it's lots of reused assets, but there's 8 worlds of completely different theming.
Yeah, and they look
They
good.
want it to be simple so that it's clear what your puzzle is, and still looks bright, and like the things that are there are clear and nicely done. So I don't know. I think the visuals overall for what the game is and was trying to be certainly work for me.
The music, this is super interesting. Well, I guess it's not super interesting because you already know that Game Freak were the developers here, but you've got the same composer for Mario and Wario as you do for the original Pokemon games.
Yeah, thought that was kind of weird. And
is that
not
crazy?
Clear. Yeah, that is crazy.
Not crazy at all.
What if Pokemon would have flopped? Did they know it was going to work?
They had to know.
I don't know.
Man, I'm just trying to think because like Mario and Wario flopped. I mean, like for all intents and purposes, like it's not a thing. People don't know about it. Like, what if Pokemon what if Game Freak would have gone down in history and out without most people knowing about it?
I mean, there's a reason Nintendo handed it to Game Freak. It's like, well, yeah, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And of course, it worked and is a massive Nintendo property now. But Yeah, why didn't Nintendo do Pokemon? You know, like their team.
Fun little trivia, especially for Nolan. The level 7 track in Mario and Wario, people
that's
think
the desert one or the.
I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head.
The desert was the last one. I know what you're talking about.
Is nearly identical to Route 24 through 25 in the track in the first generation Pokemon games.
That didn't click with me, but I'm going to go back and listen to it now.
Go back and listen, and you'll at least see the similarities. But it's interesting because
that's cool.
It could have very easily been the composer. I mean, it is that developed that in Pokemon was like, you know what? Let me go back and grab this project, tweak it a little bit, and I like it for this road.
That's actually very possible, and that makes this so interesting. It's like
I know.
A little relic.
Let me give you one other that I hope y'all didn't see and that I'll tell you about.
I didn't. I have no idea.
Mario and Wario did leave a small imprint in the Mario verse. It's not a big one, but they did leave a small one. Okay. And it shows up a few times. There's references to it in other media. And other games and stuff. So in Smash Bros. Melee, your favorite Smash?
Yeah, there's a trophy?
There's a bucket trophy.
There is.
You know it? Wow.
Yeah, but I never thought. I just thought, okay, Mario bucket. Who cares?
Of course. Yes. How cool?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
but hold on.
yes,
Even
yes.
better. In Pokemon Red and Blue, if you examine the Super Nintendo in the copycat's house, you'll get text pop up on the screen that says, a game with Mario wearing a bucket on his head.
That doesn't ring a bell.
None of us knew. And none of us knew.
But someone just heard that and goes, oh my God. Because that makes no sense. If you don't know about this game, that makes no sense.
You just think it's silly, which is fine.
Oh, dude.
But it is a shout out to this game.
That's pretty sick, Game Freak. Good job.
I think that's so much fun
I
to
like
have
that a
those
lot.
call
Yeah,
outs. Mario and Wario. If you want a copy for your Super Famicom, it is $12 used and $46 new.
Would have thought
It's not
way
bad.
more.
But the mouse, we haven't looked, might be thousands. So good luck.
It's not. There's no way.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status. That's our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. Kenny.
Hello.
We'll go last. Nolan.
Okay.
We'll go middle, and I will go first.
Okay.
I think immediately I was intrigued. Puzzle Mario game I haven't played before with a mouse accessory, and it seemed to work well. I was kind of pulled in very quickly. It was basic, but I was enjoying myself. But I felt that novelty quickly wore off, and then it was a chore to continue going, and so many levels, like 10 on each individual world, with no reward really, other than I accomplished that, or that the boss fight's definitely not a reward. I understand that, and we didn't even really talk about it, that after the 8 worlds, there's some additional stages that is really when the real difficulty begins. But I didn't get there because my enjoyment peaked really early on, and then it fell off really hard. And although I think it's novel, and I think it's something to be aware of and be like, and have this history, just listen to our podcast. You don't need to go play this game. I'd say no New Game Plus status for me.
You basically word for word summed up my thoughts on this game.
Wow.
However, this was one, and this never happens for me. It happens to Kenny sometimes, but I went into this not knowing if I wanted to give a New Game Plus or not. Because, yeah, it pulled me in quick. I mean, you watch the first play. When I started World 2, I was like, all right, this is actually going to be a banger. And there's 7 more worlds of this. Like, okay. But yeah, somewhere along, like, midway through even World 3, I was like,
exactly.
I was like, well, I just don't feel like it's worth it. Like, I like this, but am I having fun? Not quite anymore for some reason. Still very cool, novel concept, but I'm actually not going to give it a New Game Plus for exactly why Dustin just didn't. So that's it.
And then Kenny?
Yeah, we're pretty aligned. My vote doesn't matter at this point, so I won't go too long, but I will certainly say the things that are on my mind. Avoid it. It's an interesting example of the technology. So I think it was a really fun one for us to revisit because it feels very foreign to play on a console with a mouse. That's just strange. And it existed at the time. People did Mario Paint. And again, there's similar kinds of things. Like there's a reason that the DS existed. And like I like when games try new things, and that's fun. This one was intriguing, fun to talk about. I'm with you. I had a little bit of fun with it at the beginning, but outside of that, I got more annoyed than I had fun. And the puzzling was okay, but I never like had to solve a thing and then was like, oh man, I'm so clever. And that's what puzzles should do for you. You know, like give you a sense of reward. And I didn't get that, and I did get lots of just sort of annoyance. Too repetitious, too much. I said I was going to be brief, and I'm not, so I'm a liar. Don't really play this game. Just listen to us talk about it.
Were either of you like me that, like, at the beginning of the week, I was pretty confident I was going to give it my vote for New Game Plus status?
You saw,
too.
dude, I was hooked. I was hooked. I was like, this looks good. This feels good. This should feel like crap, especially on an emulator. But it was great.
No,
They
I was
botched
hyped,
it,
and then
dude.
by the end of the week, it felt like such a chore.
Yeah,
You know,
it's like
I wanted
I'm just
to
doing
make
the
sure
same
I.
thing.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I had like played all the different levels, and so the first few of them, it was like, okay, this one's different. You know, like I'm gonna get all the way through it. By the last couple, I was just like, okay, let me try this one enough.
But
to
I also
be ready
love
for the
it. Like, it's
show.
Wario.
Like,
I love Wario as a character. Anyways.
Hey, interesting fact. This is the very first game of season... What
8?
season are we in? 8?
Yeah.
Of New Game Plus that is not New
Oh.
Game Plus certified.
It's a Mario title.
wow.
It's a Mario. But what did you think? We had 22% of people on YouTube on the poll said, yes, it's worth playing today.
Okay.
2%
Interesting.
said no, and an overwhelming 76% have never played it before.
Japan
Reasonable,
only.
right?
Not surprised. Not surprised.
Yeah.
And accessory.
The
And
76
accessory. There's a
doesn't
lot
surprise
of
me.
entry that there's a high level of entry.
For those who are familiar, I'm surprised that it's that slanted in a positive experience.
Yeah, that is true. We had many of you that played along with us this week and wrote in. We'll be able to read a few of those right now on the show. BlueGen1 said, what a unique romp. Although I played a hacked version of the game with a D-pad this week, I could easily see this game being a perfect companion for the mouse peripheral. I can't say that word. This game is one that is difficult to marathon, but at the same time, falling into a groove to play a few levels is pretty easy. For such an old title, it has some fairly modern sensibilities in terms of level design, forgiveness, and difficulty curve. It gives off an early mobile game vibe. This makes it overall more approachable and familiar to today's gamers. The game also has a retro style where it teaches the player without using a drawn-out tutorial every time a new element is introduced.
Yes, love.
This is something that modern games miss the mark on all too often. Anyone looking for a
Agreed.
unique puzzler for the SNES outside of the usual falling block style game should definitely spend a couple of hours with M&W. New Game Plus for me.
It is very unique for a puzzler. You have to admit that. It's not your falling blocks, which was a huge genre, but using a D-pad, I don't think so. I think that makes the game
Yeah.
unplayable for me.
And I'll agree, you may want to play it, but for 20 to 30 minutes, and then you're going to want to set it aside.
Yeah.
And that's really my complaint with it is
But
the
maybe that's
longevity
okay.
of it.
It's a bite-sized... Anyway.
Right. It's like some
Yeah,
games are
that's why I
for
was
that,
torn.
you know, but... All right, Shane said Mario and Wario is a neat little puzzle game that almost seems like many early mobile games, interestingly enough.
my
It teaches
goodness.
you very naturally, and the gameplay is very intuitive. The first 8 levels are really just training for the final 2. And that's part of the problem. And it changes its rules a bit in those. Suddenly, lives do matter, and game overs make you restart the level. I generally don't like it when games change their rules like that, but thankfully, I was able to circumvent it with save states. I played most of the game with a hack that let you control the mouse with the D-pad
Why did y'all
on
do
my
that?
newly hacked new 3DS and switched it to computer near the end for those save states since they
that's
don't
why.
work on the emulator. I expected mouse to be a huge improvement on the Switch, but
Yeah.
honestly, it's about the same, and I think the hack is a wonderful way for people to play it if they wanted. I think this game is worth a try simply due to its uniqueness at the time. I think it'd be wonderful if Nintendo gave this a port to mobile, but it seems to sadly be forgotten, even with it strangely being in English as a Japanese-only release NGP from me.
Y'all copying each other's homework with that mobile line.
If they re-released a mobile game inspired by this, I would be interested.
Yeah, like
A
updated.
one,
yeah.
Right, a 1-to-1 port. The puzzles themselves, I don't think really hold up either. I just don't. Like it, the idea is there. I'm fully agreeing
But it's
with some of you
fully
guys,
like
but this one's
mobile friendly. Yeah.
absolutely. It 100% is mobile friendly.
But Kenny is calling y'all wrong and stupid.
Yeah,
I mean,
on the record.
wrong.
Super Gamer Guy said Mario and Wario is a perfectly alright puzzle game. It's simple enough for kids, the target demographic, to pick up and play, but it also requires you to stay on top of your helmeted companion. Some levels are easy just to blow through with no exploration, but the real fun in this one lies in collecting all of the items before the time runs out. Real fun. Players may pick a slower character at first as they're easier to handle, but the faster characters are the ones you'll need to fully complete a stage within the time limit. Although it's nothing outstanding, this little Japanese exclusive still retains its novelty all these years later. Would I give it my NGP recommendation? Maybe not, but I still think this is a respectable title to introduce to your kids or play for a few minutes here and there. It would be great if Nintendo ever re-released this as an app, but alas, seems like this one kicked the bucket a long time ago.
Look, I mean,
Yeah,
respect
totally
is the
agree.
word. I respect this game. I don't want to play it again. You know what I mean?
Yes.
We're all falling into the same general
Yes.
vicinity. No one's like, this is the best game ever, or
no,
this is
and
a
I
bad
hope
game.
they wouldn't. Yeah,
Yeah, everybody's like, it's a game.
It's a game.
Finally, Hey Brother 45 said, when I
Hey.
heard about this game, I was hoping it would be like the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series. Instead, it's kind of a tech demo for the short-lived SNES mouse accessory. The puzzles are simple and fun enough and get harder as you unlock more stages, but the game does get repetitive after a while, a little like Lemmings. The boss fight against Wario being the same each and every time and very simple is a big knock against it as well. In the end, the game was too simple and repetitive to me, so I don't give it NGP.
Fair.
Yep.
Super duper fair.
Interesting split. We had 2 of those commentators that said yes and 2 that said no, but everybody was around the same space
Cancel
of
each other out.
Yeah, our Venn diagrams overlap a little bit here.
vendetta. So we are setting aside Mario and Wario and our mices this week, and we are going to select the next game. I almost said randomly, but that's not entirely true because once again, it is time for a director's episode.
Get out of here, randomizer.
We're going
Get
to
out
be
of here.
joined by our director, Super Hypered,
Super hypered.
to play a very special game of their choosing. We're still spinning that randomizer for the sound effect. That game is... I'm looking at both of you, but really I'm looking into the eyes of my friend Nolan because
This is a good sign.
This game came out in 2005.
This is a good sign.
It's relatively recent, and
too
we
recent.
are on a GameCube once again.
Don't
This
hate
is
that.
very good.
Nolan, I think you're going to have a lot of clarity when I say that it was developed and published by Capcom.
Should I start howling? Oh, Capcom? Wait, what?
Capcom GameCube 2005
I know what it is.
survival horror
Yeah.
third-person shooter.
I should still howl at them in this case.
It's interesting because we've never had a director do this before. Super Hypered had submitted a different game. It
Yes.
was like Road Rash 4 or something that
It was
was
not
a bad idea.
Yeah, it was.
And then Super Hypered came back and said, "Can I switch my game?" And I said, "Dear God, yes." And so Super Hypered switched
God
the
bless
game
you.
to Resident Evil 4.
Oh my gosh. You have to understand something.
Okay.
I adore this series, and I know y'all don't. I know you like it, I guess. We played the first one on the show. Well, the
Yeah.
remake of the first one. It's on GameCube. So we're skipping a couple. 2 is my favorite and the best of all time. But 4, y'all, the remake is coming up too. So the community, y'all need to play with us to get ready for the remake. I'm pumped. Good choice.
Hey, so both of our Resident Evil experiences were with a guest, I believe.
Yes, that was a
first
guest
one
episode.
Was
That
a guest as well. So this
Is that
one,
our first
yeah,
director episode?
I don't know what it
One
was.
of them. It was one of the first
so-
or something.
Find a copy of Resident Evil 4, pull out that GameCube again with that weird controller, and
Best
play
controller.
this week
Stop.
with us Resident Evil 4.
Things are going to get spooky in our Discord server, and we want you to be there, even though Halloween is over. Go to discord.gg/newgameplus.
Here's some people that aren't going to jump scare us. our amazing producer-level supporters on Patreon.com, including Adam, Alex, Marlene, Antonin, Ben, Dan, D.H. Bowser, Ellis, Francesca, Gimbin, Jared, Joey, Jordan, J. Robert, Justin, Clint, Nick, Nat, Corey, Laway86, Maxima, Mr. Latte, Sage, and Shauna, Subsonic Demon, Thomas, Unbelievable, William, and Zion. Big shout out to X Childs for hopping on as a patron this week. Welcome back. And a huge thank you to our director level supporters, Rojim, Garlisle, Shane, The Tasty Yogurt, Super Hypered, Daniel, and Brunk. If we were fairies and you needed bonking, we would do it for you.
I'm not bonking.
I'm bonking no one.
You can find us on our social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. All of those links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week with Super Hypered as we play Resident Evil 4. Until then, I'm still Wah!
Love?
I've still got a bucket on my head.
I think I'm Nolan this week, actually.
Weird. And this has been New Game Plus.